One.
When I was a toddler, at the age of 3 years old, I began having a certain dream that seemed to reoccur every single night. The dream would always start out the same way. I would be standing in a bathroom stall in a brightly lit bathroom, with no one else inside but myself. There was always a feeling of intense fear that embodied me, and I knew that I was hiding from someone. All of a sudden, I hear the bathroom door open and heavy breathing. The lights start flickering, and you can hear a small dog walking along as well as heavy heels clicking against the tile floor. I see the two figures stop outside of the stall that I am standing in, and I can hardly see through the crack from where I'm standing. What appears before me is a very old witch with bright green skin, long scraggly gray hair, a worn face, and a huge nose. Alongside her is a small beige pug, which looked very innocent. All of a sudden, I see the pug looking in the direction of my stall, and to my surprise, the pug walks right underneath the stall and begins barking at me. The witch rushes to my stall, and it flies open without her even touching it. She looks at me, and I feel a rush run through my body, and before anything further happens, I wake up. These dreams occurred over and over until I was 5 years old, and there would be minor differences in every dream. Sometimes I would switch the stall I was in, or I would hide in the first stall, and when they would walk past, I would hide under the sink or make a run for the door, only to find them waiting right outside for me. The last dream that I can remember was me being dragged out of the bathroom by the witch. As she held me by my shirt, I screamed for help, but no one would look my way. It was as if I was non-existent. I observed my surroundings and noticed that I was in Rome, Italy, during the early 1800s. This shocked me, considering that my dreams occurred from 1998 to 2000. I'm now 20 years old, and I haven't had a similar dream ever since the age of 5. Sometimes I wonder why I had those dreams and what they meant.
Two.
One night, my friends and I were driving on winding back roads in the mountains of western Pennsylvania. While we were driving, we noticed that there was a car pulled over on the side of the road, with a woman sitting inside of it. The woman was staring straight ahead, as if she was in shock. This road was surrounded by trees, and it was pitch black. Driving with the high beams on was equivalent to driving with the low beams on. As we drove past the car, we wondered if she was contemplating suicide. We were stuck with the thought that, when there wasn't an oncoming car, she was sitting in pitch black darkness in the middle of nowhere, all alone.
Three.
One time, my college class took a field trip to a truck manufacturing plant, and we were all supposed to ride in a few of the other school vans. But I have this thing about other people driving, and I just have the phobia of not being able to stop or pull over when I want to. Well, long story short, I eventually got separated from them because they were able to use the carpool lane. I hadn't figured this in, and I thought for sure I would be late and get attitude from the instructor, who had already not liked the idea of me driving my own car. Anyway, they disappeared off into the smooth-going carpool lane while morning traffic was stop and go. It was about 45 minutes later, and I got to the exit. I made a few turns here and there, and boom, I was there, and no one else was. I waited about 5 minutes before the rest of them showed up, and they were all late. I was the only one on time. I waited for some people to ask me how the hell, but since I realized early on that the instructor wasn't too happy with me about going alone, I decided not to say anything at all. But the itch to rub it in was heavy. I never said a word, and it didn't hit me that it would almost seem impossible that all 2 or 3 of the vans were all late, and they were all ahead of me, and it just didn't make any sense then, and until now, I think maybe there is something to these stories of glitch in the Matrix. I go to one of the oldest Catholic universities in the United States, located right in the center of western Pennsylvania. The incident in which I'm about to speak of occurred last year when I was a junior. During the school year, I worked as a telecounselor for admissions, and I would often work Sunday nights from 5 to 9. On a normal night, I would be working by myself in the creepy old office. And sometimes I would get lucky, and one other coworker would also be working in addition to the supervisor. One night I was talking to my coworker, whose cubicle is right across from mine. As we were speaking, I noticed that the supervisor is staring in my direction in a very intense manner. I ignore it, just figuring that she is daydreaming. After me and my friend were done talking, I turned around to finish placing calls. As I turned, I noticed that my supervisor was still in a trance. About 5 seconds later, the cup that holds all of the writing utensils on my desk lifts up in the air and flies off my desk and onto the floor. I turn around and see my coworker staring in my direction with her mouth sprawled wide open in disbelief. My supervisor stared at the computer screen as if she were in deep concentration. I asked the both of them if they saw what had just happened. My coworker saw the whole thing and replayed the whole situation word by word. Meanwhile, my supervisor acted as if she had no idea what had happened and told me that maybe I was seeing things. The fact that my coworker saw exactly what I had saw verified that this wasn't just me seeing things. I finished calling that night, and me and my coworker talked about it later online. In addition to our college being haunted, we have always gotten a dark vibe from our supervisor. You can feel it as soon as you walk into the office. Me and my coworker both remember that she was concentrating deeply in my direction during the moment when the cup propelled through the air. I am now a senior, and thankfully I no longer work at that job. And since then, the supervisor has moved on to another job.
5.
When I was a little kid, at about 5 years old, I remember that I came home from school one day and I had a very bad headache. So I laid down on the couch to get some rest. It was a sunny day that day, and I woke up sometime the next day in an entirely different pair of clothes and to cloudy weather while riding the car. I asked my parents what time it was, and they told me that it was 3:00 p.m. on Saturday. Now, there is no way possible that I could have slept for 24 hours, and I know for a fact that I had no recollection of waking up and changing my clothes at any point in time. I asked my parents if they remembered me napping on the couch after school, and they both looked at me as if I were crazy. I still have no idea what happened that day. Thank you so much for watching and supporting the show. If you have a story to share, send us an email, like us on Facebook, share, like, and subscribe.